Birds, Beasts and Relatives by Gerald Durrell. To Theodore Stephanides, in gratitude for laughter and for learning. Conversation. It had been a hard winter, and even when spring was supposed to have taken over, the crocuses, which seemed to have a touching and unshaken faith in the seasons, were having to push their way grimly through a thin crust of snow. The sky was low and grey, liable to discharge another fall of snow at any minute, and a biting wind howled around the house. Taken altogether, weather conditions were not ideal for a family reunion, particularly when it was my family. It was a pity, I felt, that when they had all foregathered in England for the first time since World War II, they should be treated to something approaching a blizzard. It did not bring out the best in them. It made them more touchy than usual, quicker to take offence, and less likely to lend a sympathetic ear to anyone's point of view but their own. They were grouped, like a pride of moody lions, around a fire so large and flamboyant that there was immediate danger of its setting fire to the chimney. My sister Margot had just added to it by the simple method of dragging in the carcass of a small tree from the garden and pushing one end into the fireplace while the remainder of the trunk lay across the hearthrug. My mother was knitting, but you could tell by the slightly vacant look on her face and the way her lips moved occasionally as if she were in silent prayer that she was really occupied with the menu for tomorrow's lunch. My brother Leslie was buried behind a large manual on ballistics, while my elder brother, Lawrence, clad in a roll-top pullover of the type usually worn by fishermen, several sizes too large for him, was standing by the window sneezing wetly and regularly into a large scarlet handkerchief. "Really, this is a frightful country," he said, turning on us belligerently, as though we were all directly responsible for the climactic conditions prevailing. "You set foot on shore at Dover, and you're met by a positive barrage of cold germs. Do you realise this is the first cold I've had in 12 years, simply because I had the sense to keep away from Pudding Island? Everyone I've met so far has a cold. The entire population of the British Isles seems to do absolutely nothing from one year's end to another except shuffle round in small circles, sneezing voluptuously into each other's faces. A sort of merry-go-round of reinfection. What chance of survival has one got? Just because you've got a cold, you carry on as though the world was coming to an end," said Margot. "I can't understand why men always make such a fuss." Larry gave her a withering look from his watering eyes. "The trouble with you all is that you like being martyrs. No one free from masochistic tendencies would stay in this virus paradise. You've all stagnated. You like wallowing here in a sea of infection. One excuses people who have never known anything else, but you all had a taste of the sun in Greece. You should know better." "Yes, dear," said Mother soothingly, "but you've just come at a bad time. It can be very nice, you know, in the spring, for example." Larry glared at her. "I hate to jolt you out of your Rip Van Winkle-like trance," he said, "but this is supposed to be the spring. And look at it. Need a team of huskies to go down to post a letter." "Half an inch of snow," snorted Margot. "You do exaggerate." "I agree with Larry," Leslie said, appearing from behind his book suddenly. "It's bloody cold out. Makes you feel like you don't want to do anything. You can't even get any decent shooting." "Exactly," said Larry triumphantly. "While in a sensible country like Greece, one would be having breakfast outside and then going down to the sea for a morning bathe. Here, my teeth chatter so much it's only with difficulty that I can eat my breakfast." "I do wish you'd stop harping on Greece," said Leslie. "It reminds me of that bloody book of Gerry's. Took me ages to live that down." "Took you ages," said Larry caustically. "What about me? You've no idea what damage that Dickens-like caricature did to my literary image." "But the way you wrote about me, you would think I never thought about anything but guns and boats," said Leslie. "Well, you never do think about anything but guns and boats." "I was the one that suffered most," said Margot. "He did nothing but talk about my acne." "I thought it was quite an accurate picture of you all," said Mother, "but he made me out to be a positive imbecile." "I wouldn't mind being lampooned in decent prose," Larry pointed out, blowing his nose vigorously, "but to be lampooned in bad English is unbearable." The title alone is insulting, said Margot. My family and other animals. I get sick of people saying, and which other animal are you? I thought the title was rather funny, dear, said Mother. The only thing I thought was that he hadn't used all the best stories. Yes, I agree, said Leslie. What best stories? Larry demanded suspiciously. Well, what about the time you sailed Max's yacht round the island? That was damn funny. If that story had appeared in print, I would have sued him. I don't see why. It was very funny, said Margot. And what about the time you took up spiritualism? Supposing he'd written about that. I suppose you'd enjoy that, inquired Larry caustically. No, I would not. He couldn't write about that, said Margot in horror. Well, there you are, said Larry in triumph. And what about Leslie's court case? Well, I don't see why you have to bring me into it, said Leslie. You were the one going on about him not using the best incidents, said Larry. Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about those stories, said Mother, chuckling. I think they were funnier than the ones you used, Gerry. I'm glad you think that, I said thoughtfully. Why? Asked Larry, glaring at me. Because I've decided to write another book on Corfu and use all those stories, I explained innocently. The uproar was immediate. I forbid it, roared Larry, sneezing violently. I absolutely forbid it. You're not going to write about my spiritualism, Margot cried out. Mother, tell him he's not going to write about that. Nor my court case, snarled Leslie. I won't have it. And if you so much as mention yachts, Larry began. Larry, dear, do keep your voice down, said Mother. Well, forbid him to write a sequel then, shouted Larry. Don't be silly, dear. I can't stop him, said Mother. Do you want it all to happen again? Demanded Larry hoarsely. The bank writing to ask you if you will kindly remove your overdraft, the tradesman looking at you askance, anonymous parcels full of straitjackets being left on the doorstep, being cut dead by all the relatives. You're supposed to be the head of the family. Stop him writing it. Well, you do exaggerate, Larry, dear, said Mother. Anyway, I can't stop him if he wants to write it. I don't think it will do any harm, and those stories are the best ones, I think. I don't see why he shouldn't write a sequel. The family rose in a body and told her loudly and vociferously why I should not write a sequel. I waited for the noise to die down. And apart from those stories, there are quite a number of others, I said. Which ones, dear? Inquired Mother. The family, red-faced, bristling, glowered at me in an expectant silence. Well, I said thoughtfully, I want to give a description of your love affair with Captain Creech, Mother. What? Squeaked Mother. You'll do no such thing. Love affair with that disgusting old creature indeed. I won't have you writing about that. Well, I think that's the best story of the lot, said Larry unctuously. The vibrant passion of the romance, the sweet archaic charm of the leading man, the way you led the poor chap on. Oh, do be quiet, Larry, said Mother crossly. You do make me angry when you talk like that. I don't think it's a good idea for you to write this book, Gerry. I second that, said Larry. If you publish, we'll sue you in a body. Faced with such a firm and united family, bristling in their resolve to prevent me at all costs, there was only one thing I could do. I sat down and wrote this book. Writing something of this sort presents many pitfalls for the author. His new readers do not want to be constantly irritated by reference to a previous book that they have not read, and the ones who have read the previous book do not want to be irritated by the constant repetition of events with which they are familiar. I hope that I have managed to steer a fairly steady course between the two.